It is yet another Thursday. I'm sitting across from my good buddy Kevin Homer. How you doing, Kevin?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been a tiring week, but I'm encouraged. I think that's the word of the week. I've been seeing our marketing agency and our printing company have gotten really busy over the past few weeks, few months, and I think that's a good reflection of the business landscape in general. That as everyone's getting vaccinated, things are starting to open up again, and some restrictions are starting to lift. And I'm encouraged for business. I'm encouraged for society. And as we're starting to see some business activity, this is a really good timing for today's conversation, because I know that there's starting to be some businesses opening up and shifting their focus and changing, and I'm really excited for today's conversation.
I'm all the way with you, and of course we got the Sixers winning games in a row, the Phillies winning games in a row, and the Eagles are.
We'll find out.
We'll get into that later. Let's start the show.
Let's not.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Thursday Thoughts, where we bring you amazing thought leaders, business executives, and all around great people to talk about all sorts of business related topics. We have a really cool guest today who I've known for a really long time. Can't wait to actually chat with you about him, and you'll love his personality too. We're going to get into who he is as an awesome dude in general. But Kevin, how you doing today?
Good. We chatted it up before our little intro, but business is booming. The weather is better. Sixers are 2 games ahead in first place of the East with 7 or 8 games to go, I think. So hopefully we can maintain that. Eagles had a good first round of the draft last week, and some unknowns beyond there. There we go. It's a good way to kick off Thursday Thoughts. Go Birds, go Sixers, and let's go Thursday Thoughts.
Yeah, right. So super excited to introduce everyone to my friend, my colleague, and business partner, the one and only Michael Adler, Esquire. Give you a little bit of details about Michael. So Michael E. Adler is a managing partner of the law office of Michael E. Adler. He focuses his practice on the representation of publicly traded and privately held corporations, restaurants, developers, and property and financial management companies in complex commercial and litigation matters, including insurance, real estate, and contract issues. Michael currently serves as president of Insight PA Cyber Charter School. He is an active member of the Temple American Inn of Court, the Global Philadelphia Association, and general counsel to American Friends of Ariel, Design Blends LLC, MindAffiliate.com, whoop whoop, Dulce Suono Ensemble, which again, you'll probably have to correct me on some of this stuff, Mike, and a founding member of the USA Judea Samaria Chamber of Commerce. He has served as a trustee and chair of the grant committee of the Philadelphia Bar Foundation, an officer of the Temple University Alumni Association, president of the Temple Law Alumni Association, and vice president of the board of directors of Temple Beth Hillebeth L in Wynwood, PA. Michael is on the advisory council of the City of Philadelphia Mural Arts Project. He is a committeeman in Lower Merion Township. He has served as an elected officer of the Young Lawyers Division of the Philadelphia Bar Association and a member of the American Bar Association. He handles numerous pro bono matters on behalf of Philadelphia Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts and the Support Center for Child Advocates. He was selected by his peers in the Pennsylvania Law Weekly and the Legal Intelligencer as a lawyer on the Fast Track, and in Philadelphia Magazine as a Pennsylvania super lawyer. With all that, super excited to introduce you to my good friend, Michael Adler. How you doing, Mike?
I'm so grateful to be here. I'm happy to be with you both, and I'm looking forward to the conversation. We're going to talk about Sixers and Eagles today, right?
Of course. It's the only topic for today. First off, how the heck do you have time to have done all that stuff? Like, I know how busy you are. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, no, I always love to stay engaged in the community. I mean, I always say I'm never going to be the richest lawyer, but I'm going to be involved in the community and really enjoy what I do and giving back to the community and trying to be a mentor for my kids and trying to help people pay it forward. I've been very blessed.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome. And a lot of what we're going to talk about today somewhat relates to me too, because Michael actually did my LLC back in 2015, I want to say.
Yeah.
And Mike, I don't even remember how we met, but when we became partners in my new Philly, like there was no connection between the two. I ended up finding out, oh, he's here too, which was pretty awesome. But an amazing lawyer. It seems like everybody knows Mike. And I'm looking forward to digging into some really good legal questions that you've been asked. A lot of these are hurdles that a lot of businesses go through as they're starting. So I'm super excited to jump into some of these topics. So again, thank you for being with us today, Mike.
My pleasure. Looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. And for folks who are watching, whether you're on LinkedIn, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook, feel free to give us some comments. Feel free to ask any questions. We're not limited just to the questions that we have here. So if there's something you want to know from Mike, of course, he'll tell you if he can't answer this on our chat and maybe needs to have a one-on-one with you. But feel free to drop those questions in the comments. We'd be happy to share them and get Mike's opinion on it. But we're going to kick it off here with sort of a very generic question. Because I've worked with a lot of people in the business sector, and a lot of them don't know what they need a lawyer for. So I'll say this: if someone's about to start their own business, why do they need a lawyer?
So, why do they need a lawyer? Because they generally don't know what they don't know. If you were an employee, you sort of worked for the boss. If you're your own boss, you got to consider contracts and corporate formation and accounting and maybe dealing with your own employees, dealing with your trade secrets, your customer lists. And there's lots, maybe you want to get funding from third parties and investments. So these are the things that lawyers who've done this for decades can help a small business. I'll say this a few times. I love turning people's side hustle into their main hustle. That's just what energizes me. And as sort of why I'm an entrepreneur myself, why I'm an entrepreneurial lawyer myself, and just helping people get started on their own path to financial success and independence.
Gotcha. Now I know when I started my business, I literally had 2 pennies to scratch together. And again, I found you not only more affordable to work with on forming my LLC, but I needed that education because I tried to go the LegalZoom route. And I wasn't really getting any information, but that's the only thing that I really harped on or looked at that I said, hey, I need a lawyer. And I was still able to grow. Can you give us a little bit more detail in terms of if I'm a small business outside of the LLC, what's something that these like, and when I say small business, I'm talking my level, like we want to get to the point where we're making 50 grand, 100 grand a year. I know the corporate small business is like, we're making $1.5 million a year, something like that. What are some of those things that a real entrepreneur starting off who doesn't even have those aspirations? What else could they use a lawyer for outside of that LLC formation? If they're just really small and they don't really have to worry about some of those bigger things?
Well, it depends. Are they going to be a consulting business? Are they going to acquire some real estate to develop real estate? Are they going to separate their personal assets from their business assets? So, that's one of the reasons we would form an LLC. And I know we're going to get into that a little bit. The limited liability protections, some of the tax advantages of using a separate entity to form a business as opposed to another. And then eventually, as you grow, you may find you want partners in the business, and you may want to, how much are each of you going to put into the business? How are you going to divide the profits? You may have employees. So these are all important things to consider from the beginning. Work with a good trusted advisor, not just not just a lawyer, but a good financial professional, an accountant, it's an insurance professional. Lots of reasons to start and investing your limited capital in the right trusted advisor from the beginning.
Gotcha. And that was actually a great segue. Let's jump into the second question. Why should I form an LLC?
Yeah. So, the main reasons are LLC stands for limited liability company, right? So if you get sued by a third, let's say you invest $10,000, start a business, enter into contracts on behalf of the LLC, and then the business fails. Well, they can't go after Zach or Kevin personally, as long as you've done the typical corporate formalities and not commingled assets with Zach and Kevin's personal expenses. As long as you tended to treat the limited liability company as it was a separate entity, contracted through the LLC, funded things through the LLC, and made expenses, then the individual can't sue you personally. That also goes to personal injury matters, especially for my real estate clients who form an LLC. If you are solely a sole proprietor and you have 5 houses in your name, if somebody gets $1 million verdict and that one house that would have been owned by a single LLC is only worth $200,000, well, they can go after the other 4 houses to get that verdict. So that's really important. Insurance issues. Sole proprietorships is a way to go for some people, but it doesn't limit your risk. Also, I think, my financial professionals and tax accounting friends will suggest that there's some tax advantages of sort of separating your expenses into the LLC, reducing your expenses, reducing your income by ordinary necessary expenses. And then as it gets drawn out to you, maybe by salary or distribution, you would pay the higher rate as it comes out to you, but you've already reduced most of your revenue by expenses through the LLC. So lots of reasons to go with the LLC. And usually when somebody comes to me, I usually recommend that they start from an LLC. There's also other reasons. I don't want to drag this on. People tend to treat an LLC as if it's a business. So if you're just saying, hi, my name is Zach, I want to do business for you, I think people feel like you've got a business. You may have more. You have a website now. You've got, so it sort of increases the professionalism that I think a third party might see you and treat you if you have created a separate business that you can maybe even sell or get investors. So there's just so many reasons to start this separate sort of baby and then let it grow.
Got you. And again, for the folks watching, again, please feel free to throw us questions. Usually we hold questions to the end, but we'll actually just bring them right in as they come. And we did just have one from Teresa. She asked, can one change the structure of an LLC to include multiple DBAs, which is doing business as, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. Certainly, I'd want a little more background information of why we're changing the structure. But if you formed an LLC, your LLC can then do other things. And a DBA is sort of also known as a fictitious name. It's kind of how you're going to market yourself and how perhaps a bank will accept a check if somebody makes to Zach's Cookies as opposed to Zach Enterprises LLC. So, but you want to make sure that you register your DBA as a fictitious name with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, so you could either open a bank account or have the bank accept money in that name. But yeah, we do multiple DBAs all the time within an LLC. Now, there's also reasons why you may want to form a new LLC for a new venture. That might be you've got Zach Holding Enterprises LLC, and then one of your lines of business you're going to have a partner in. Well, that partner is not sharing in the profits of Zach's other things that he holds in the LLC, like property interest, rents, other business lines, other consulting businesses that you may have within your LLC. So, as you get more complex with different lines of business and different people in your lives and different investments, you definitely want to continue to have these conversations with both your good lawyer, business lawyer, a tax accountant, financial advisor, insurance professional. I'll talk about that a lot during this show.
I can tell you on our end of things, we have our printing company called the Homer Group, which for many years was actually a DBA of other names that we've had previously on the print side, but we didn't want to go through that change, the formal name change. So we just, it was easier for us to do the DBA.
Yeah.
And then we did finally change it to the Homer Group. And then when we started Navitas as our marketing agency, we had a lot of conversation of, do we set up a separate entity or do we set up Navitas as a DBA? We actually decided to go the DBA route for Navitas also, because we wanted to have one set of insurance and one set of payroll. It was just going to be too much work for us to, and extra expense to separate everything out. So just, echoing what you said, like, there's a lot of good reasons to keep it as a DBA. There's a lot of good reasons to separate it out.
Yeah, no, I think you made the right choice from what I'm hearing. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Next question I have for you. And again, folks, if you're watching, feel free to throw us some questions as well. So let's say my business has turned into a partnership. What should I do? And for the word partnership, I know that, I think some folks use that word very loosely. Maybe give us a little bit of a definition of what a partnership is as it relates to the legal ramifications of it. And then what should I do if I have an LLC and I end up having a partner?
Yeah, sure. This comes up a lot, and this is great. This means your business is growing. This means you're attracting additional capital or additional investors, or literally someone who's 50-50. So you may have had a business idea. Let's just say it's, buying a piece of land to develop property. And so you started an LLC and you bought the land in the name of the LLC. And then comes along your general contractor or partner or somebody who has money and time, and they want to do it with you. So you figure out a way to take your LLC, you go to a lawyer, very easy for us to draft an amended and restated operating agreement so the two of you can determine what are the terms and conditions of your agreement. What's going to happen? Who's going to put the money in? What is your individual liability? How are you going to split the profits? And more importantly, sort of like a prenuptial agreement, what's going to happen if you don't get along or if one of you wants out of the business? So these pre-negotiated ways, what happens if one of you dies? What happens if one of you becomes disabled? Just one of these sort of like things that you're thinking about when you're forming an agreement with somebody. Sometimes people come to me, we've got 3 of us that want to start a restaurant together. And so we talk about things like, who's going to be the working partner, who's going to be the chef, who's going to be the front office, who's going to handle the books. And we discuss who's putting money in and what that might mean. I think a lot of times people don't realize that, let's say $100,000 is needed to start the business. If one person puts 40,000 in, one person puts 30 in, and one person puts 30 in, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're a 40, 30, 30 owner of the business, or that you're going to divide the profits 40, 30, 30. The one person who might be putting in less money might be working 80 hours a week on the business, and the other one just a passive investment. So there may be some different discussions and incentives. This is all the important things that we discuss right at the beginning, so we clear all expectations, and so there's less disputes down the road. I usually like to represent not one member of the LLC, but the whole LLC, so that I can give advice that's in the best interest of all the members of the LLC.
With that being said, so do you get into almost like an aspect of like mediation? Like if there are issues, is it easier for you to come in and help if you are controlling the LLC versus one partner?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, if I only represented Zach in beginning, if Zach and Kevin were forming an LLC and I was Zach's lawyer representing Zach, then I'd probably continue to represent Zach throughout that process if Kevin was cheating him and not giving him his profits or something. Not going to happen. I mean, Kevin. I know. Yeah, Zach, we'll talk offline. But a good portion of my practice, which I actually enjoy, is sort of multi-generational family disputes, or sort of what I call partnership fights, or business divorces, or just simply you don't get along anymore. Court's not the way to go. So let's sort of come into a mutual place, figure out what the business is worth and what your percentage is, and let's see if we can work that out. And I can continue to do that sort of as the conciliaire to the LLC and work out a buyout that usually ends up being mutually beneficial to all parties. So everybody can go on their merry way, even shake hands and end the business with a buyout so that somebody's shares go back to the original owner. And we can do that often.
Interesting. Cool. Let's go on to our next question here. What do I need to put into a contract to make sure I get paid? So we're jumping off of the LLC partnership bandwagon, and now we're talking about what do I need in terms of my communication with my clients. So what are those key elements that help with that? And feel free to talk about contracts in general. It doesn't just have to be about.
Yeah. So again, very broad question. Thank you for asking. Contract is basically just a written agreement with an offer and an acceptance and the terms of the deal. It's really to just have a meeting of the minds and an expectation of all the parties of what it is. Now, I assume by this question, we're talking about sort of if you're providing a service or selling products and you're getting somebody to sign a contract. Well, that's great. You need the terms and conditions set forth. And one of the things my clients only seem to care about is how much am I getting paid? When am I getting paid? And maybe what happens if I don't get paid? Right. And that's usually what people can write on a piece of napkin. And then you bring it to your lawyer, and there's some additional terms that I usually try to think about. Things like, a choice of law provision. Maybe you're here in Philadelphia, but you're selling products to somebody in California, and then they don't pay you. You don't necessarily want to have to sue them in California. You want to sue them here in Pennsylvania. So sort of like a choice of law provision, a choice of forum, so they're agreeing to be sued in your local court here is important. And then, of course, I can't tell you how often I don't see this in contracts when people come to me and they've already used something they found online or something, but it's prevailing party provision in there. In other words, if I'm selling something and someone doesn't pay me, I want my attorney's fees and my court costs to be covered. And that should also be in there. So that, if I'm sending even just a demand letter, hey, California person, you owe me $10,000. If you don't pay me within 5 days, I'll see you in court. I also include in there, plus you'll pay all my court costs, attorney's fees, and everything else. So, you'll not only be sued in Philadelphia, but it'll probably be $20,000 but before you're done. So you might as well just pay my client now. So it goes more to dispute resolution than it does to, but there's a lot of other things we put in contracts. Something else like indemnification clauses. If somebody else causes harm, you want them to be contractually indemnified, which means they'll be responsible for sort of actions that harmed you that somebody else is suing you for. You want to be able to have them agree that they'll be part of the lawsuit or resolution of it.
Okay. I never fully knew what that meant. I've seen that in a lot of contracts. I'm like, oh, okay.
Call me next time. Yeah. So there's many other parts of a contract, obviously. I mean, we think about insurance clauses and risk of liability clauses and, all sorts of other things. But this is just at a high level. I mean, it really is, though, most contracts can really be boiled down to just making sure that the two parties have a common expectation of what it is they're agreeing to do, and also some sort of mechanism for resolving disputes should they have a dispute. Because that's really, we're trying to avoid litigation with most of these. We're trying to resolve disputes and have the parties have their expectations be met.
Yeah, and I know we're all making contracts, in our day-to-day lives all the time without even realizing it. We're having a conversation. I make an offer. You decide to accept it. In a way, we just made a contract. And in business, maybe I'm sending out an estimate or some sort of minor agreement. And guess what? How do we know what to put in those estimates and everything? We kind of learn from our mistakes, I guess. You think you know what you're doing, and then you get screwed once, and now you know what to include next time. But obviously there's some big agreements that you don't want to take those risks. You better do it right the first time, and don't play those games. So, it's definitely good to have those people in your in your court, such as Mike here.
Thank you. Yep.
One thing I'm curious about. So at what, and I'll just word this as simply as I can, and I know it might not sound the way it should. At what level does a business owner need to start doing contracts? Because I feel like a lot of times as a small business owner, especially if you're just starting out, you're just trying to even prove that you can offer a service. For example, myself, when I started out in consulting, I wanted to prove that I could help people do work. I didn't really have contracts with folks. It was really more handshake agreements. And I was saying I'm a man of my word, so I'll be good. Is there a certain point or threshold of services or of revenue that you say it makes more sense to do a contract?
I have two examples. I don't know if they're listening now. I know there's a bunch of people listening online. Two of my clients who've both been in business in two separate businesses in the last 5 years kind of had that philosophy, and both of them had their first piece of litigation. So I hate to say that the first time you should have a written contract is when you get sued or when you want to sue somebody. That's kind of what we kind of avoid here. But boy, a lot of the issues that were sort of vague and unexplained between the parties would have been awesome if we had pre-negotiated this in a contract, including things like a prevailing party provision that I mentioned earlier. One involves a moving company that kind of just sent out like email estimates, kind of like Kevin was referring to. Another one sort of he's a electrician / painter, just a general contractor guy. Again, very loose, but when bad things happen, you kind of wish. The first thing I asked both these clients is, "Let me see your contract." I'm like, they didn't have a contract. I'm just surprised by that. So it's one of those like, as you're getting your thing started, like it's so important to just have your expectations with your clients in a contract. being drafted doesn't have to be that expensive, and we can tweak it as we go, as you develop the issues and hurdles in your own business as you see them as they grow. But I have a lot of experience with a lot of different businesses. I could save people a ton of hours, a ton of money by just coming for some initial consultations. And I'm always happy to do that with people.
And someone who's using you to create a contract, they don't have to do that for every single client, right? Once they create it, they can kind of just update it themselves for different individuals.
That's always the way I do it. Whether we're doing an independent contractor agreement for I'll always send you both the version in PDF and in Word, and you change the names, or you can call me and say, hey, I've got this little tweak of an issue. I've got some companies that are like digital staffing agencies, and sometimes the contracts are always a little different. So what we do is we sort of create what's called a master services agreement, which is more of an 8 to 10 page document that sets forth the terms of the engagement between client and their customer. And then I try to do it as a 1-page statement of work, an SOW, which they can just slap on there as needed for each term without having to run it by the lawyer. Clients like it because it doesn't have to go back to each legal department each time. It's just a much simpler, cleaner way to do business. So you're investing the money up front to getting you're investing the money up front so that you don't have to call your lawyer every time you get a new customer.
What I've come across, and again, a lot of this has to do with the scope of who I'm working with. A lot of the people I work with don't have legal departments. Matter of fact, they're one person themselves that are going to say yes or no to hiring me. And if I end up sending them a 7-8 page contract, they're scared off. They're thinking that all this paperwork is because, I want to protect myself against me not doing the work I should be doing and them wanting to sue me. And now all of a sudden they can't because of this contract. So I guess that's what I kind of meant by like what level of business is a contract needed. But I think one of the other key things too is the contracts don't have to be that intimidating. I'm much more in that scope of work, sign at the bottom kind of guy.
You know what? There's lots of ways of doing it. So sometimes we make a proposal with the client's logo on it, not look like a contract that's boring 8.5 by 11 with all legalese. Sort of just do, I make a contract look like your letter to your client, and it's got some terms and conditions in the back. But really, the important part is here's what we're going to provide. Here's what we expect you to do. Let's say you're an architect or something, or an interior designer. I do a lot of work for interior designers, for example. Here's what we do. Here's what here's the costs that it's going to be. And then there's some terms and conditions, like I mentioned earlier. This is governed by Pennsylvania law, and prevailing parties, will be entitled to attorney's fees and costs of litigation, things like that. But we can make it not look like a scary legal document to turn off someone from signing a 7 to 8 page boring contract. It doesn't have to look like that.
Gotcha. Kevin, our documents, would they be considered a contract or a statement of work, what we typically send to folks?
I would say kind of what Mike was saying. I think we kind of incorporate the two into the same document. We're a marketing agency. We're all about branding. We're all about, sizzle and appeal and everything. And, we try to put our best foot forward. And when we send a proposal, it's a proposal. It's got a nice combination of our branding and our clients' branding and, all the information out, nice and pretty and clear and what they want to read. And then just as you said, Mike, it's the very last page that says, here are the terms and here's what we're going to do and here's what it doesn't include. And, now please sign it. But yeah, just, 11-page document. It's that 11th page. That's the legal stuff.
Yeah, I have clients that sort of put my contract in the middle of a marketing proposal and sort of the terms and conditions here incorporated therein. And, it protects the client, but really it's their work product that they want the client to see and just sign off on the terms and conditions, which unfortunately most of your customers don't read, but you need to have it to protect yourself. But it's more of your statement of who you are and how you expect to provide the services to your customer and how you expect to get paid, and maybe even what happens if you don't get paid. Again, it's all about dispute resolution.
Right.
Awesome. And again, for folks that are watching, feel free to throw us any questions you have for Mike. We'd be happy to throw them right in there. I have
another question.
Yeah, go, Kevin.
Never mind, Kevin.
So we were talking about kind of having these standard agreements or contracts or whatever you want to call them. And, it's great. You've got your Word document and you can just update it as you need. But how often would you recommend that, maybe we should go back and evaluate and make sure everything in that contract is actually still relevant? And I'm thinking, especially over the past year that we've had during COVID, you can't go into the single Thursday thoughts without mentioning COVID at some point. A lot of businesses have changed, and maybe the types of agreements or whether it's, contracts with a client or business agreements that we have, and, structures of how our businesses work. I mean, so much has changed over the past year for so many businesses that, should people be reevaluating, even if it seems like we do send out the same thing every time?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. I mean, certainly I could talk for hours about how my practice has changed a lot since March of last year and how things became really important. But I'll give you an example. I've got a client who's like a home, what do we call it? Like a home movie theater installation company. Well, all of his employees have to go into people's homes. So certainly the contract that we were using pre-COVID needed to be updated for some waivers and releases. People obviously knew you can't do this work without going into people's homes. And it was important that we both had our employees recognize the risk of going into people's homes, and that they had the right to sign and agree and waive to protect the company, but also to protect them from the customer. But it was vice versa. We also wanted to make sure that the customer really understood that we're taking all these precautions, CDC recommended precautions, but we're coming into your home to do work. And while we're wearing masks, there are risks. So you want to proceed, please sign here and acknowledge the risks.
Yeah. Do you ever give assistance with employee handbooks?
I do. There are some firms that are sort of better situated to sort of send out the 80-page employee handbook stuff, but certainly I've done it. I do it. I revise, I update stuff, and I advise a lot of clients on employee matters, both independent contractors, employee matters, workers' comp issues, and things like that. So yeah,
that's a big button right now. That's things you need to be paying attention to, anyway. But I know at one point we were using the same employee handbook for a long time, and then I actually sat down and read it one day and saw that we had a policy about our employees using the fax machine, but not emails and texting. This was years ago. It's not quite as sounds. But even still, it's like, whoops, we got to change that a little bit. So there's no.
Yeah, I mean, in the last
similes in there. Now it's all about texting and emails. And of course, over the past year, I mean, everyone now has to add their work from home policies that some businesses had and some businesses had never given thought to before.
And a lot of businesses, especially small business clients, had never had a paid leave policy, a sick leave policy, where you get sort of 10 paid days off. And that's something that a lot of clients had to adjust to, and just make sure that their employee handbooks were keeping up with the changes. Absolutely. Yeah. What a year it's been. And I think for the better. I mean, we could talk all day about sort of the changes that small businesses have had to adjust, whether it's restaurant clients or marketing clients. But people who were able to adapt to a workforce that stayed engaged and productive from home have seen great year-over-year growth. Nobody likes to brag about the businesses that are doing really well, but there are a lot of my clients and a lot of businesses that have had good years, while lots of us have suffered. Lots of us have suffered.
Yeah,
indeed. Let's go into our last question we have here, barring any other questions that come from social. And I like this one. Do all lawyers do pro bono work? And I got some pro bono work follow-up questions, but tell me about that, because I always hear about it, especially like in movies or in shows. Like it's like, oh, I'm doing this pro bono, but I don't really know of a lot of people that actually have a lawyer that they work with and it's pro bono. Tell us about that world.
No, that's an important part of what I do. I mean, I think I graduated law school in 1998. Pro bono basically just means that a lawyer is donating time to a cause or an organization, usually a nonprofit organization, or, for the work I've done with the Support Center for Child Advocates on behalf of abused and neglected children in the court system who are going through abuse or all sorts of other issues. I work with the Philadelphia Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts because I'm passionate about sort of the arts community, and I've had some amazing opportunities to work with some absolutely incredible creatives on, all sorts of issues, contract issues, copyright issues, real estate issues, as referrals from PVLA, which is a great organization. And there's dozens of great legal organizations. Do all lawyers do pro bono? Boy, I wish. If every lawyer did the ABA, American Bar Association, recommended standard of 50 hours a year, which is like 1 hour a week, so many organizations would have so much free legal help, so many organizations that do sort of people call the organization because they need legal help, whether it's illegal lockout by a landlord, for example, and then the organization like Community Legal Services, which is on the front lines of helping thousands of Philadelphians each day. I got to have a front line of doing this when I was on the Philadelphia Bar Foundation as a trustee for 6 years, and I chaired the grants committee. So I'd hear from all the executive directors about at least what's going on in Philadelphia. But pro bono is such a huge part of how I'm blessed to be a lawyer and how I'm blessed to give back. Doesn't mean for free, but I donate my time to a lot of organizations and a lot of organizations' clients. I wish everybody joined me in that.
If you are let's say a nonprofit and you need legal help, how do you go about finding a lawyer who might be able to provide some pro bono work? Like, is it just like who's in your circle and ask them, or is there?
It happened to me recently. I mean, there was a great organization. It's an international women's organization that provides global services to women in underserved countries. And it was just a referral from another lawyer who I do work with, who, nonprofit stuff is not his bailiwick, but he asked if I was interested, made an introduction, and I'm happy to serve as their pro bono counsel. I've been doing that now for about 6 months. It is networking a bit, but there's also ways to call. You can call the Philadelphia Bar Association and get a referral to a nonprofit organization. There's actually an organization called Philadelphia VIP that will help you with creating a nonprofit. It's called LawWorks. It's a part program of Philadelphia VIP, which will assign you a lawyer from a big firm even that volunteers their time to get your small business or nonprofit off. Now, there might be a wait. It's one of those things you sign up and get on a waiting list, unfortunately, because again, everybody's busy, but it's a great program and it's really helped a lot of organizations get their sort of first free lawyer. And if they can't find someone, they'll go around and try to find somebody for you. They will help. So a lot of resources out there. Someone can hit me up and say, hey, do you know somebody can help? I always know lawyers who are willing to volunteer their time.
And now I know this isn't pro bono, but I'm sure you get asked this before. And I might have even had the thought to ask you this before. Let's say I need legal assistance. Maybe pro bono is not an option, but I don't have the money to do it. How often or how frequent is it that folks will ask lawyers to become partners in the business, offer a percentage of my business for you to do the legal work? Is that common, or is that accepted?
It happens. I mean, it's harder in law firms. It's one of the reasons I actually started my own firm about 8 years ago, because I do like to invest in clients like yourself, Zach, and we're partners in a business. And, I think I probably started as sort of the lawyer. This goes back to sort of like becoming partners with anybody, though, and it's particularly important with lawyers who need to exercise independence as they're giving legal advice, not just taking a percentage of the client's business, but really being an independent advocate. But, we haven't talked about this, but I recommend that all my clients don't become partners with anybody until they've had 9 dinners with each other. Sort of, you wouldn't marry somebody if you haven't had 9 dates. You wouldn't become partners with somebody if you haven't had sort of 9 dinners and sort of get to know each other, talk about the dreams of the business. It's the same thing when you're a lawyer. I mean, it's very, very easy to form a business with someone. And as I talked earlier, it's very challenging to break up that business. Business divorce can be excruciating, dividing up the assets and liabilities. So as a lawyer, I think twice about sort of taking ownership of a client before I've really gotten to even know that client. I'd rather have a relationship first before I'm taking a percentage of their business. We'll find a way. We'll find a payment way. We'll do a contingent thing. We'll do a payment plan. I'll work with people. Mm-hmm. But, I hesitate to sort of become an owner of all my clients' businesses. My tax return would look ridiculous if I could.
Right. And thank you for that answer, because I think a lot of people kind of don't know exactly which way to go with that, even when approaching a lawyer. But that's great to hear. Let's see. Oh, we had another comment come in.
Yeah, great comments. I'm enjoying the chat here. I appreciate everybody out there in internet land who's watching along here now and in the future. So,
Rich, that's
we're hiding comments from you. Also, you should see what some of these people are saying about you.
I bet
we keep those personal comments off of the live feed.
Right.
But again, if anyone has any last minute questions, we're coming close to our end here. For Mike, feel free to throw them in the chat, and we'll try to get them in within our time. But just in general, I do appreciate sort of this knowledge. I think, that's a space where a lot of people just aren't that knowledgeable, and all we know is what we see on TV shows and what we hear in jokes and all that kind of stuff. But I will say, having gotten to know you, you've always been very friendly type of individual and very popular on social media too. I know you have an interesting Twitter story. I feel like I want you to share that with folks so they can understand how you became Twitter famous.
Yeah, I appreciate Steve jumping into. So no, I mean, I hope it comes across that I love what I do, and I love being passionate about helping people do what they love to do. I mean, the entrepreneurial spirit is why I wake up every day, and I love helping people turn their side hustle into their main hustle. And I love seeing clients that even outgrow me. That's great. I start with people who then, I'm a solo. I love being a solo. I don't want to be one person, one company's general counsel anymore. I've done that. I want to continue to help lots of entrepreneurs and connect entrepreneurs within my network. It's one of the things I love to do as well. So, Hey, we start together, and then you outgrow me and need to hire a big firm and pay $900 an hour or even more than that now. That's fine. That's great. Make the transition. I wish you the best. So I love the startup scene. I love helping people get their restaurant off the ground, get their first flip off the ground, get their consulting business if they've been laid off or something. So that's what I love to do.
If you had a favorite industry to work in, what would that be?
Well, favorite industry. I mean, I love the restaurant industry because I love to eat, and the restaurant industry I love being a foodie. So
they pay you in food? They pay you in like free meals?
The restaurant industry has just so much dynamics. It's so fast changing. You're dealing with employee issues. You're dealing with real estate issues. You're dealing with contract issues, investor personalities and stuff. I love real estate. A lot of people actually only know me as a real estate attorney. I love the whole buying and selling and negotiating. Everything's negotiable. Buying and selling land or doing a lease, helping people's retail business, both on behalf of landlords and tenants. So real estate, restaurant, but I also love working with the artists. I love the creative economy. I have a lot of clients who are artists, sculptors, athletes, painters, musicians, and I really enjoy that as well.
Videographers,
absolutely.
Indeed. We did have one more question come in from Rich. Any final thoughts on the SBA opportunity?
I assume we're talking about small. That sounds like a whole question offline or something. Happy to talk to Rich about it. I think we're talking about maybe some PPP loans or a whole bunch of other.
Oh yeah.
I can evaluate that with Rich or anybody else offline. We do a lot of that stuff. So I'm not sure if I can get into that in the less time we have here, but I appreciate the question and happy to talk offline about that.
You got a convo set up after this. That works. So for all the folks watching, to give you a little insight into what is coming up, our next Thursday Thoughts is going to be the amazing Sheldon Bartlett-Rumer.
I'll be tuning in for that. She's great.
Yeah, she's amazing. We're going to be talking about personal branding, and I'm super excited. This is the first upcoming Thoughts screen that only has one person on it because we're taking the month of June off. So we'll be back and starting our lineup again in July. But Sheldon's going to close us out in 2 weeks. So, of course, we hope everyone can RSVP and attend that event. Any last words for the viewers, Mike?
No. Feel free to connect online. I'm easy to find on LinkedIn or my Facebook page. Connect on Instagram. I think you've dropped that there. And Madler9000 or on Twitter. Feel free to follow. I love to connect with people, help people, and connect people within my network. So this was a lot of fun for me to be here. Great to see both of you, and I hope everybody stays safe, stays healthy.
Those are also good handles to talk to you about the Eagles and the Sixers, since we didn't really get into it here.
All right. I tweet about it, so yeah.
That he does.
I've seen it.
Awesome. Well, another great show, another great episode. Thanks again, Mike. Of course, to all the viewers, you can actually watch this replay and share it with folks. It is on the Navitas Marketing YouTube page. It is going to be on our Navitas Marketing LinkedIn page and, of course, our Facebook page. So, again, feel free to stay connected with us, and we'll see you on the next Thursday Thoughts.
Thank you so much for having me. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.